Have you ever wondered why prosperity seems to flow effortlessly to some, while for others it remains a distant mirage despite effort and intention? If you've ever felt the silent ache of financial struggle or questioned your worth in a world that measures value by productivity and possession, you are not alone. This journey is for you. Welcome to Prosper and Cultivate, the vibrational path to financial flow, a sanctuary where energy precedes matter and abundance is not chased but invited. Here we'll unearth the silent codes that shape your financial reality, not through willpower, but through vibration. Together, we'll explore timeless wisdom from spiritual science, merging heart coherence, neural plasticity, and the unseen language of the universe. If this message resonates, share it with someone who needs this light. Comment on what abundance means to you and allow your voice to ripple into the vibrational field of shared prosperity. Page 1, The Silent Seed, the first encounter with vibrational prosperity. There's a quiet moment before a seed breaks open, a moment the world cannot see, yet everything changes within it. This is the silence of transformation. Often, prosperity begins not with grand gestures or sudden wealth, but with a subtle internal shift, a frequency realignment, almost imperceptible, like the hush before dawn. You may have come here seeking strategies or steps, but I invite you into something deeper, a remembrance. Beneath every struggle with money or scarcity, there lies a forgotten truth. You are not here to chase prosperity. You are here to cultivate the frequency that calls it to you. The real work is vibrational. What grows in your life is not merely what you desire, but what your inner field, your emotional soil, is prepared to nourish. Imagine a woman kneeling in a garden just before sunrise. She presses her hands into the cool earth, not to plant, but to listen, to feel. She knows the soil speaks. She doesn't rush the seeds. She tends to the earth with care, knowing that what cannot be seen is already becoming. Like her, your prosperity begins in silence, in stillness, in the frequency you tend before action. This is the field we will enter. Greg Braden speaks of the heart and brain not as separate systems, but as a symphony. When their rhythms align, a state he calls heart-brain coherence, the body becomes a transmitter, pulsing with clarity, sending messages not only through neurons, but through fields of energy that ripple outward. In this state, intention sharpens, emotion deepens, and the universe listens. Real abundance flows not from effort alone, but from coherence, from a soul that has remembered its resonance. Perhaps you've worked hard for years, tried affirmations, budgeted with discipline, or prayed with hope, and yet something still feels missing. Let this not be a point of shame, but of awakening. The path to financial flow begins not in doing, but in becoming. You are not broken. You are simply being invited back to your original resonance. To begin, I invite you to place one hand on your heart and the other on your lower abdomen. Breathe slowly. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and exhale for 6. Do this 3 times. As you do, imagine roots growing from your feet into the earth. Feel them anchoring you, not to survival, but to support. Say silently, I am safe to receive. I am open to grow. Repeat gently. This is your vibrational soil. And now, ask yourself quietly, what am I silently believing about my worth and money, even when no one is listening? As you remain in that stillness, breathing with the rhythm of your body and the earth, notice the thoughts that rise, not the loud ones. Not the ones you've rehearsed or the mantras you've memorized, but the subtle echoes beneath them. These are the beliefs that shape your frequency. Many of them were not born of your choosing. They were absorbed, like moisture into soil, from the environments you grew up in, from the fears of those who came before you, from generations who equated survival with scarcity. But scarcity is not your inheritance. It's a memory carried in the nervous system, not a law of existence. And like all memories, it can be gently rewritten. Think of the seed again. Before it blooms, it surrenders. It does not cling to its shell, to the familiar. It dissolves. In this dissolving, new patterns emerge. The seed becomes what it never imagined, not by effort, but by trust. This too is your path. Before wealth flows into your life, there must be a vibrational dissolving, a letting go of the shell of old frequency. The belief that you must always do more to deserve more is one such shell. The guilt that flares when you receive without exhaustion is another. These are not truths. They are inherited tensions. They can be softened. Science now shows us that emotional frequency can be measured. According to the Heart Math Institute, elevated states like gratitude, compassion, and appreciation literally shift the electromagnetic field of the heart, which extends several feet beyond the body. This means that when you truly feel abundance, even before a dollar arrives, your body becomes a magnetic field attuned to prosperity. Your biology listens. The universe responds. Still, this is not about thinking positive in a shallow sense. It's about cultivating coherence between what you feel and what you desire, not faking joy, but inviting authenticity. If you're grieving a loss, acknowledge it. If you're tired, honor your fatigue. Alignment isn't pretending, it's permission. When you honor where you are, you prepare the field for where you're going. Imagine now a man who spent years chasing financial success. He built, sold, earned, and yet remained restless. One day, after a sudden illness forced him into stillness, he returned to the garden behind his childhood home. There, surrounded by neglected roses, he remembered his father's voice. Things grow best when you're not watching them every second. They feel your trust. He began again, this time not from urgency, but from listening. Slowly, wealth came, in unexpected ways. But more importantly, so did peace. His frequency had changed. To begin cultivating this vibrational soil, I offer you a simple practice. Each morning, before touching your phone or stepping into the noise of the day, sit in stillness for 3 minutes. Breathe gently. Place your hands on your chest and belly. Ask, what feeling am I planting today? Then whisper an intention, not for results, but for resonance. Try. Today I plant trust. I choose the frequency of ease. And again, reflect, am I allowing myself to receive before proving, or am I waiting to earn what the universe is already offering? The greatest illusion in the journey toward prosperity is that it exists somewhere outside of you, in future achievements, external validations, or numerical bank balances. But the truth is more subtle and more empowering. Prosperity is a mirror. It reflects not just your actions, but the tone beneath them. Your vibration, the felt sense of who you believe you are, shapes what you attract, what you keep, and what you expand. You may have been taught to push harder, to never rest, to see rest itself as laziness. These are the old laws of scarcity consciousness, built on fear, control, and the illusion of separation. But in the vibrational paradigm, prosperity arrives through alignment, not burnout. In quantum physics, energy responds to observation. Attention, infused with emotion, becomes the architect of matter. When you embody gratitude for the unseen, you collapse probability into presence. The future becomes now. The invisible becomes tangible. Joe Dispenza teaches that the brain does not know the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined with emotional intensity. This means that when you feel abundance with sincerity, when you evoke the sensation of being already provided for, your body begins to wire that state into its neurochemistry. Over time, you no longer wait for money to feel worthy. You feel worthy and money begins to reflect that frequency. Let me share a story, simple but profound. A woman once lived in a small, cluttered apartment where every item was wrapped in the fear of not having enough. She kept clothes she didn't wear, containers without lids, papers from 10 years ago. Her life felt heavy. One day, she read a line that changed her. "Your outer space reflects your inner trust." Slowly, she began releasing, not out of frustration, but reverence. With every drawer she cleared, she whispered, "There is more coming." Within months, not only did her home transform, so did her income. Opportunities she hadn't pursued appeared. Friends offered support. She had become spacious inside, and life responded. The soil of your reality responds to what you believe it can hold. If your inner narrative whispers, "It's never enough," even abundance can feel like drought. But if your tone shifts to, "I am safe, I am supported," life begins to echo that trust. To nurture this shift, try this. At the end of each day, sit for 5 minutes with a hand on your heart. Recall one moment, no matter how small, where you felt supported. A kind gesture, a breath of peace, a synchronicity. Anchor this moment. Let your body feel it again. Whisper, "I remember. I am provided for." Then ask yourself, not with judgment, but curiosity. What inner tone am I rehearsing each day? And what reality is it rehearsing in return? Sometimes the most profound shifts begin in silence, not in loud breakthroughs, but in gentle inner openings. You might already be feeling this. A quiet remembering, a soft release of tension around money, identity, or worth. This is not an accident. It is the soil responding to your presence. Every breath, every choice to observe instead of react, every whispered intention is a form of watering the seed you are cultivating, even now. Abundance is not something you chase. It's something you synchronize with. And synchronization requires stillness, attunement, and presence. Just like a musician tuning their instrument before joining the orchestra, you too are tuning your frequency before entering the symphony of financial flow. You are no longer trying to fix your life. You are learning to feel its rhythm and dance with it. Let us not forget the role of self-compassion here. The mind, trained for years in fear or lack, will resist this new vibration. It may question the validity of stillness. It may crave action to prove your worth. This too is part of the cultivation. You are not erasing old patterns. You are outgrowing them, gently, like a plant leaning toward light. Tom Campbell reminds us that consciousness is not passive. It is a participatory field. Your choices, your vibrational intentions ripple across this field, influencing not just what you receive, but how you perceive. In this sense, your inner garden is not a metaphor, it is a generator. Prosperity is not just a gift, it is a byproduct of who you are becoming. So take this final moment of the day or of this page to connect once more with your soil. Close your eyes, breathe deeply. Whisper gently, "I do not need to chase what I already am. I am abundance remembering itself." And now ask yourself with honest curiosity, if I stopped striving, what abundance might begin to arrive naturally? Having stepped into the stillness where prosperity is first felt, not forced, we now turn inward to examine the very substance of our soil. The hidden beliefs, often inherited, that silently govern what we allow ourselves to receive. For before we can truly cultivate abundance, we must reprogram the earth within. Let us now descend into the root system of consciousness, where beliefs are the nutrients or toxins of our personal garden, and begin the sacred work of transformation. Page 2. Reprogramming the inner soil. Beliefs as nutrients of reality. Every garden is shaped not only by the seeds it receives, but by the quality of its soil. And our inner world is no different. If your financial life has felt like a cycle of striving and scarcity, it may not be because your seeds are flawed, but because your soil carries hidden memories, beliefs so deeply embedded that they feel like truth. Yet what is often mistaken as reality is merely repetition. Many of these beliefs were not born from your conscious choice. They are inherited programs, absorbed in childhood or passed silently through family dynamics, cultural conditioning, or trauma. You may have heard them in whispers. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. We can't afford that. Or felt them in moments when your desires were met with guilt or silence. These fragments become roots in the subconscious, shaping what you believe you're allowed to have. Dr. Bruce Lipton, in his exploration of epigenetics, reveals that our biology responds not just to genetics, but to perception, the way we believe the world works. Our thoughts, especially the ones we repeat and feel emotionally, act as biochemical instructions. They influence not only the nervous system, but the way we engage with life itself. When you believe you're not enough, your body contracts, your energy closes. Your decisions reflect avoidance or overcompensation. The soil becomes tense, resistant. But just as soil can be restored with care, beliefs too can be composted and transmuted. Consider the story of Elias, a man who grew up in poverty, watching his parents stretch every coin with anxiety. Even as an adult, with a stable job and income, he never felt safe. He hoarded. He feared generosity. When asked why, he said, "It's like I'm still waiting for it all to disappear." In therapy, he traced this to a moment at age 6 when his father lost his job and the electricity was cut. In that moment, young Elias encoded a belief. Stability isn't real. This belief governed his adulthood until he named it, felt it, and chose to plant something new. And you? What moment shaped your financial worldview? To begin softening your soil, try this reflective ritual. Find a quiet place. With pen and paper, complete the sentence, "Money is to 10 times." Don't think, just let it flow. Observe what arises. Are the answers fearful, defensive, hopeful? This is your soil speaking. Now circle one statement that feels heavy. Beneath it write, "Whose voice is this?" Let yourself feel where it came from and decide with compassion if it still serves your garden. Close your eyes. Place your hand on your heart. Say softly, "I honor the fear that tried to protect me, and now I choose to plant a new truth." And then ask, what belief about money am I ready to release? Not by force, but by love. Once you begin to listen to the voice beneath your financial habits, you may notice something unexpected. Not judgment, but grief. There is a quiet sorrow that often lives beneath limiting beliefs. Not because you are flawed, but because you've carried burdens that were never yours to begin with. These beliefs of unworthiness, of limitation, of fear were inherited in silence. They took root not through logic, but through repetition and emotion, especially during moments of vulnerability. It's here that deep compassion is required. You are not wrong for holding these beliefs. You are human, and your nervous system, designed to protect you, has simply been doing its job. But now you are safe enough to choose again. Neville Goddard taught that imagination is not just a tool. It is the creative force of reality. What you vividly and repeatedly imagine, especially when paired with feeling, becomes the blueprint your subconscious builds upon. This means that to reprogram the soil, you must do more than just remove old roots. You must plant new visions, not fantasies, but felt truths, images of yourself as already abundant, already supported, already safe. Let me offer you a story of transformation, quiet, symbolic, but powerful. A young woman named Clara grew up hearing her mother say, "We must always be prepared for the worst." That phrase became Clara's lens. Even as an adult, when she received raises, gifts, or help, she would brace herself, as if joy were dangerous. In meditation one day, Clara was guided to imagine herself as a child holding a tiny box. Inside the box was the phrase, "It's safe to trust." She wept, not because she believed it fully yet, but because it felt possible. That moment became her new seed. With daily care, it grew. Transformation does not come from denying the old voice, but from gently choosing a new one, again and again, until the nervous system catches up. This is the practice, not perfection, but repetition in love. Here is a sacred exercise to begin this process. Each night before sleep, close your eyes and imagine a version of you, calm, radiant, prosperous, walking through a garden. See this self picking fruits of joy, gratitude, and ease. Hear them say to you, "You are worthy, it's already happening." Let the scene feel real. Breathe it in. This is more than visualization. It is vibrational reconditioning. And now, ask gently, what new inner phrase do I want to become the voice of my soil? Every belief carries a frequency. When a thought becomes a belief, especially when charged with emotion, it becomes embedded in your energy field, vibrating silently, shaping choices, emotions, and outcomes. This is not mystical fantasy, but vibrational law. The universe responds not merely to words or effort, but to coherence, the harmony between what you say, what you feel, and what you believe at the most intimate level. And when that coherence is rooted in scarcity, even unconsciously, abundance has no fertile ground to take root. This is why some people work endlessly, but never feel safe, or earn more yet continue to struggle. The field hasn't changed. The soil is still rehearsing lack. But just as energy forms beliefs, energy can transmute them. Imagine a ritual, a small fire, a quiet evening. You sit before it with a folded paper in your hands. On the paper, a sentence you've carried for years. "I always have to fight for everything." You read it once more, not with anger, but with reverence. This belief once protected you. It was a survival spell. And now it is no longer needed. With intention, you place the paper in the flame and watch it curl, glow, and dissolve. In its place you whisper, "Life flows through me. I am held, even in stillness." This act is symbolic, yes, but it is also vibrationally real. When paired with emotion and repetition, these rituals reshape the nervous system, calming the fear centers of the brain and opening the body to safety. As Dr. Joe Dispenza describes, the brain is neuroplastic. It rewires in response to focused attention and feeling. You are, quite literally, recoding your inner architecture. It's important to note that transformation often begins subtly. You may not feel instant euphoria. You may still doubt, still hesitate. But every act of conscious intention, every time you interrupt an old pattern and plant a new seed, you are shifting timelines. You are becoming the gardener. To deepen this shift, here is a practice called the reversal ritual. Each time you catch yourself repeating an old phrase, "I can't afford this," "That's too much," or "I'll never have enough," pause, place your hand on your heart, and say aloud a new truth. Abundance is a frequency I can choose. Even if you don't fully believe it yet, say it, feel it, let it settle like morning dew on your soil, and then ask softly, "If I trusted that my energy creates my economy, how would I speak about money today?" Healing your relationship with prosperity is not about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering what's true. Beneath every limiting belief, there is a longing for safety, a longing to trust, a longing to belong to a reality where abundance is not a privilege, but a natural state. And the most compassionate truth is, you are already enough to begin. When you reprogram your inner soil, you're not denying the past. You're choosing not to let it define your harvest. You're honoring the struggle, blessing the roots, and gently planting something new, a belief aligned not with fear, but with expansion. It's not always glamorous work. Sometimes it's sitting in silence with a memory that hurt. Sometimes it's forgiving yourself for years spent in survival. But as you do, something begins to shift. Not always in your bank account at first, but in your posture, in your breath, in the way you speak your name. These are signs. This is the field responding. Greg Braden reminds us that belief is the marriage of thought and emotion. It is not enough to think positively. You must feel it, embody it, rehearse it until it becomes a new normal. Like a river carving new pathways into the earth, your intention, when repeated with feeling, creates real change, first invisibly, then tangibly. Let me offer you a closing ritual for this page, simple but powerful. Tonight, light a candle in a quiet room. Sit before it with a small bowl of water. Whisper an old belief you are ready to release into the water. Then, pour the water into a plant or onto the earth, saying, "I return this to the soil. May it become something new." Then place your hands on your heart and whisper your new belief 3 times, like planting it with care. Feel it settle. This is how you reprogram the field, not in haste, but in reverence. And finally ask yourself, what new reality is now possible because I have chosen to believe differently? Now that we've cleared and softened the inner soil, it's time to explore the sacred element that activates your new beliefs into motion. The emotional frequency. For while the mind sets the intention, it is the heart, the emotional body, that communicates most powerfully with the quantum field. Let us now turn to the power of feeling before seeing and discover how to cultivate the elevated emotions that magnetize the reality your soul longs to live. Page 3. The frequency that cultivates. Getting emotional before achieving. In the field of manifestation, the heart leads before the hand. To truly receive, you must first become. And to become, you must feel, not pretend, but sincerely evoke the emotional signature of the reality you seek, even before it has arrived. This is the essence of vibrational alignment. Most people wait to feel joy until life gives them something to justify it. A raise, a result, a recognition. But in doing so, they delay their alignment. The quantum field does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are. More precisely, to the vibration you repeatedly offer. Emotion is the language of that vibration. Joe Dispenza often says, when you feel the emotions of your future, you begin to signal new genes in new ways. This is neuroplasticity in motion, the rewiring of your brain and body to align with a future self, not bound by the limitations of your past. When you truly feel abundance before seeing it, you begin to change from the inside out. Your field shifts, and life begins to meet you there. Consider the metaphor of the sunflower. It turns toward the light, not because the light touches it first, but because it remembers the feeling of warmth. In the same way, your emotions are your compass. When you feel expansive, grateful, calm, even briefly, you signal to the field. This is the direction of my becoming. Let me offer you the story of Lena, a teacher who for years lived paycheck to paycheck. She was practical, careful, but always under strain. One day, during a workshop, she was guided into a meditation where she imagined her future self, not rich, but radiant. In that vision, she felt freedom, peace, spaciousness. She wept, not from sadness, but from recognition. That night, she walked differently. The world hadn't changed, but she had. Weeks later, without forcing, she was offered a project that doubled her income. But more importantly, she stopped fearing her bank account. She began living from a frequency of enough. This is the path we now enter, the path of emotional cultivation. To begin this practice, I invite you to take a few moments each morning to sit in silence and recall a memory, a single moment when you felt free, supported, or deeply alive. Let the feeling return. Let it expand in your chest. Then, imagine carrying that emotion into your day, as if it were perfume on your skin. And now ask yourself, if I already felt financially free, how would I move through this moment? Emotion is the activator. It is the spark that ignites intention into form. You can repeat affirmations for hours, visualize with precision, or meticulously plan your goals. But if the underlying emotion is fear, lack, or desperation, you're still broadcasting scarcity to the quantum field. The feeling is the prayer. This is why many people feel frustrated with manifestation teachings. They do the right things, but nothing changes, not because they're incapable, but because the emotional fuel is misaligned. The question is not just, what do I want? But how am I feeling while I want it? Is your desire a call from joy or a cry from fear? In the spiritual science of coherence, taught by Greg Braden and expanded by HeartMath, elevated emotions, such as gratitude, appreciation, compassion, and love, bring the heart and brain into synchrony. This coherence creates a state in which the body becomes a harmonic transmitter, radiating a signal that influences not only biology, but external circumstances. When you feel grateful before the manifestation, you collapse the timeline. Gratitude becomes the evidence of faith, and faith is creative. Let me share a metaphor. Imagine you are a painter, and your emotions are your palette. Every day, you dip your brush into a feeling, anxiety, hope, shame, joy, and with each stroke, you color your reality. What would your current life look like painted in the emotion you most often choose? If that picture is not what you long for, the answer is not to abandon the canvas, it's to choose a new color, one stroke at a time. This doesn't mean forcing joy or faking positivity. It means inviting elevated emotions like you would a dear guest. Begin small. Don't aim for bliss. Aim for relief, for curiosity, for moments of peace. These are the openings through which higher frequencies enter. Here's a practice to begin cultivating this shift. Each afternoon, pause for 3 minutes. Breathe deeply. Then ask, what am I feeling right now? Whatever the answer, name it aloud. Then ask, what's one emotion I'd like to invite in its place? Close your eyes and imagine opening a window in your chest, letting that new emotion breeze in. Let it sit with you. Let it teach you something. Repeat this daily. Over time, you'll begin to notice the shift, not just in your emotions, but in how life responds. And ask yourself gently, what would happen if I made feeling good a daily practice, instead of a distant reward? To live from elevated emotion is not to deny reality, but to choose which part of it you wish to amplify. Every emotion you cultivate becomes a signal, a frequency broadcast from your body and field, inviting experiences that match it. This is not metaphor, it is resonance. In the same way that a tuning fork vibrates only to frequencies aligned with its own, your life becomes a mirror to your dominant emotional state. Imagine walking into a garden where each plant responds to your energy. When you approach with joy, flowers open. When you carry resentment, the leaves close. In this symbolic space, you learn that your inner world shapes the external. Prosperity, then, is not given. It's mirrored. It flows to those who are willing to carry its frequency before the evidence appears. One of the most overlooked aspects of emotional alignment is consistency. A single moment of gratitude is beautiful, but a sustained atmosphere of gratitude, repeated, embodied, lived, becomes magnetic. Your field remembers. The neurons fire together, and soon this frequency becomes your new baseline. This is where miracles become patterns. Neville Goddard taught this through the concept of living in the end. You do not wait for the outer condition to change before you feel the inner state. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and from that place you live, move, and speak. This is not wishful thinking, it is vibrational authorship. Let me tell you of Matteo, a musician who once struggled with self-worth and scarcity. For years he worked late gigs, underpaid, believing it was all he deserved. One morning, he decided to try something different. Before getting out of bed, he imagined being celebrated, abundant, deeply appreciated. He felt the warmth of that reality as if it were now. He did this every morning for 6 months. The work remained, but slowly his outer world shifted. Clients approached him. His prices rose naturally. He was offered a record deal not because he begged, but because he had become a match. This shift is not instantaneous, but it is inevitable with repetition. Here's a resonance-building practice. Each morning, choose one elevated emotion: peace, freedom, love, abundance. Then, for 3 minutes, close your eyes and visualize a scene where this emotion is present in your life. See the details, smell the air, hear the sounds. Feel the scene from within, not as a spectator, but as the one living it. Whisper, "This is who I am becoming." Then ask with sincerity, what if joy was the prerequisite, not the result, of prosperity? Emotions are not just inner weather. They are signals, invitations, and architects of reality. Each time you choose to feel aligned with the life you are calling in, even before it arrives, you are tuning your entire being to that reality. You're becoming the version of yourself that no longer waits, but embodies. This is the shift that changes everything, from seeking to radiating, from wanting to being. When your vibration precedes the evidence, you no longer depend on external conditions to define your state. You are the source. You become the sun, not the seed waiting for light. Science supports this deeply spiritual insight. Studies in psychoneuroimmunology show that emotional states influence hormonal regulation, immune response, and even cellular repair. Gratitude boosts dopamine and serotonin levels, increasing optimism and resilience. What does this mean in practical terms? That your financial reality is intimately connected to how safe and abundant your nervous system feels. Prosperity is not just about money. It is about inner safety, joy, and spaciousness. Let me leave you with a closing story. A man once sat in meditation, visualizing a life where he was no longer anxious about money. In his vision, he walked through a market, smiling, paying with ease, sharing freely. But more than the image, what stayed with him was the feeling. That night he changed nothing externally, but the next day he noticed his breath was deeper. His decisions were calmer. He negotiated with confidence. His outer world had not yet changed, but his vibration had, and the shift had begun. To close this chapter of emotional cultivation, I offer you this ritual. Each evening, place a small object, a stone, a pendant, a coin, in your hand. Infuse it with an emotion you wish to cultivate: peace, trust, joy. Hold it until the feeling becomes strong. Then place it somewhere visible. Each time you see it the next day, let it remind you, I am already aligned with what I seek. Now ask yourself one final question for this page. If I stopped waiting to feel abundant and chose to feel it now, what new doors might open? Having grounded ourselves in the emotional frequencies that attract abundance, we now turn to the sacred canvas of creation, the imagination. It is here, in the invisible theater of the mind, that realities are first rehearsed before they unfold. Let us now step into the power of inner vision and discover how to build a future vibrationally with the same hands of thought and heart that shape the unseen into form. Page 4. The Invisible Garden. How reality is shaped by imagination. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine walking through a garden that no one else can see. There are flowers blooming in colors you've never named, paths winding toward places your feet have never touched, and trees bearing fruits that carry the taste of your deepest desires. This garden does not exist in the world, yet, but it exists in you. And more than that, it is the blueprint from which your outer reality begins. This is the realm of imagination, not as fantasy, but as frequency. When you imagine vividly and emotionally, you are not escaping reality, you are designing it. The subconscious mind, responsible for 95% of your behavior, does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. This truth is the gateway to transformation. Neville Goddard understood this deeply. He taught that imagining a scene with feeling from the end result, not the desire, plants the seed of reality in the subconscious. It is through this process that a new world is born. You become not a passive observer of life, but its co-creator. Let me share with you a story. A young woman named Thalia lived in a noisy city, working long hours, dreaming of freedom. Every night before bed, she imagined a home in the countryside. Not just the visuals, but the feeling of waking up to birdsong, the sun on her face, the silence of trees. She felt the warmth of the wood floors beneath her feet, the smell of wild herbs on her table. Nothing in her outer world changed. Not immediately. But within 6 months, an unexpected inheritance and a sudden job opportunity aligned. She found herself moving into a space almost identical to her inner vision. She did not chase it. She became it. Imagination is your vibrational architect. When paired with emotion, it becomes the generator of your quantum signature, the energetic blueprint that informs what life reflects back to you. Here is a sacred practice to begin engaging this power. Each morning or evening, find a quiet space. Close your eyes and imagine one scene, no longer than 3 minutes, of your future self, already living the life you desire. Do not watch it like a movie. Be inside it. Look through your own eyes. Feel the air. Hear the sounds. Feel the peace, the joy, the presence of that moment. Let your body memorize it. This is not visualization for wishful thinking. This is vibrational anchoring. And then ask yourself with honesty, what is the reality I am rehearsing daily, and is it one I wish to live in? To imagine with feeling is to plant vibrational seeds into the soil of the quantum field. Every scene you mentally rehearse, especially those laced with emotion, becomes a kind of energetic instruction, a quiet decree to the universe. This is who I am becoming. The future is not waiting to happen. It is waiting to be rehearsed. This is why the stories we tell ourselves, silently and often unconsciously, are so powerful. When you picture outcomes of failure, rejection, or limitation, you are still imagining, but you're using the same faculty that could create liberation to reinforce the familiar. The mind does not rest. It is always imagining something. The question is, are you imagining with intention or defaulting to fear? Let us return to metaphor. Picture a vast greenhouse, not of plants but of potential realities. Each section holds a version of you, the anxious you, the healed you, the abundant you, the doubtful you. Every day through imagination you water one of those versions. You feed it emotion, thought, attention. Eventually, that version grows strong enough to step into your life. Joe Dispenza emphasizes that sustained inner rehearsal builds neural pathways that become easier for the body and brain to follow. This is not magic. It is measurable. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And as your inner rehearsals become more vivid, your subconscious begins to treat them as instructions. You act, speak, and respond differently. Not because you are pretending, but because you are becoming. Consider the story of Amir, a man who feared public speaking. His job required it, but his nervous system resisted. Instead of forcing change, he spent 10 minutes a day imagining himself speaking calmly, clearly, and with impact. He saw the audience nodding, felt the energy of connection, heard his own voice grounded and strong. After weeks of this practice, he stepped onto a stage and, for the first time, felt no fear. Not because the fear was erased, but because another neural pathway had become stronger, the one born from his imagined success. To cultivate your own vibrational greenhouse, begin a daily journal of inner scenes. Each night, write a short paragraph describing a moment in your abundant life, not as hope, but as memory. Use past tense. Write, "Today, I walked into my new space. I felt peace. I gave thanks." Let your imagination become muscle. And now, ask with presence, if my imagination is the rehearsal of my reality, what future have I been unknowingly preparing for? Imagination is not only a psychological tool, it is a spiritual faculty. It bridges the visible and the invisible, the finite and the infinite. Through imagination, you step into the quantum field not as a passive dreamer, but as a conscious co-creator. It is here, in this sacred space, that you remember your power not to control the external world, but to shape the vibrational script through which it responds. Tom Campbell, in his theory of consciousness, as the fundamental layer of reality, explains that our decisions, intentions, and awareness participate in a grand simulation, one in which what we observe and emotionally invest in becomes part of the unfolding. In this view, imagination becomes not a form of escape, but a sacred responsibility. You are programming the interface of reality through the quality and clarity of your inner focus. Let me offer a deeper metaphor. Imagine that life is a vast field of quantum soil, and your imagination is the hand that draws blueprints into it. These designs do not sprout instantly, but they are recorded, absorbed, and eventually mirrored back, often in ways more poetic and precise than logic could ever engineer. But the field is impartial. It will grow what you plant, whether fear or faith, lack or love. There is a reason spiritual traditions across time emphasize the power of visioning. From ancient mystics to modern mystics, vision is seen as a precursor to becoming. Not idle daydreaming, but intentional creation. And yet here is a subtle truth. Many resist this practice not because they doubt its power, but because they fear its implications. If I truly can shape my reality through inner vision, then I am no longer a victim. I am responsible. And responsibility requires presence, discipline, and courage. The good news is that you are not alone in this. The moment you engage imagination as a sacred act, the universe or consciousness itself responds. Coincidences align. Support arrives. Your role is not to force the fruit, but to cultivate the image. Here's a simple practice to restore this creative trust. Sit in stillness. Imagine your highest self approaching you, not as a fantasy, but as a wise version already living your desired reality. Ask them, "What do you know that I've forgotten?" Listen, feel, write their answer down. This is your soul speaking through imagery. And then ask, "What vision has been quietly waiting for my permission to bloom?" Imagination is the sacred rehearsal of reality. It is the soul's language, unbound by time or circumstance, reaching into unseen realms to touch what has not yet taken form. When you imagine vividly, emotionally, and consistently, you are not merely hoping, you are communing with the quantum. You are becoming fluent in the language of possibility. And perhaps most beautifully, imagination softens resistance. It bypasses the critical mind that says not yet or not for you, and invites you into a state where you can taste, feel, and embody your desired future now. It is in this embodied state that resistance dissolves and reception begins. Think of your inner world as a loom. Every image you weave, every emotion you blend into that image becomes a thread in the tapestry of your becoming. These threads may seem invisible at first, but over time they form the very fabric of your life. Greg Braden speaks of heart-based creation, where the visions we hold must be anchored in coherence between heart and brain. When you imagine with love, with presence, and without desperation, you initiate a sacred coherence that tells the universe, I am ready. Not ready to grasp or force, but to allow, to receive, to embody. Let me share a symbolic story as we close this chapter. An elder once told a young child, there are two wolves within you. One is fed by fear, the other by vision. And the one that grows is the one you feed with your attention. The child asked, how do I feed the one of vision? The elder smiled. You dream with open eyes. You see what has not yet bloomed, and you treat it as if it already lives in your breath. To anchor this teaching, I offer you this practice. Before sleep, choose one image of your abundant life. Just one. Perhaps it's a conversation, a gesture, a quiet moment of peace. See it, enter it, feel it. Then place your hand on your chest and say, I remember this future. I'm ready to live it. Let that be your final thought of the day. The subconscious receives it as instruction, and gently ask yourself, if my imagination is sacred soil, what am I planting each night, and what will I awaken to tomorrow? Having envisioned the abundant life through the eyes of imagination, we now arrive at a threshold where creation meets surrender. For the most vibrant seeds still require space, the quiet trust that allows them to grow unseen. Let us now explore the art of letting go, the sacred irrigation of prosperity through trust, presence, and the release of control. Page 5. The confidence that waters, giving without resistance. In every act of creation, there comes a sacred pause, a moment where the seed has been planted, the soil nourished, and all that remains is trust. This is the space of surrender. And while it may feel like inactivity, it is perhaps the most powerful act of all. For it is here that we move from control to communion, from effort to alignment. Many of us were taught that to receive, we must always act, push, and strive. In a world obsessed with hustle, surrender seems passive, even foolish. But in truth, surrender is not giving up. It is giving over, offering your vision back to the field, knowing that its unfolding is not your burden, but your birthright. Let me offer you the image of a farmer. He does not plant a seed and then dig it up each day to check if it has sprouted. He trusts the soil, the rhythm of rain and sun, the mystery of time. His role is not to force the growth, but to hold space for it. So too with your visions. Once imagined, once felt, they must be released, not in indifference, but in faith. This is the vibrational power of letting go. When you release the need to control how or when abundance arrives, you open the channel for it to come in forms greater than you could have planned. Control narrows the field. Trust expands it. Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks of the quantum unknown, a field of infinite possibilities that only responds when we step beyond the predictable. To stay in a state of surrender is to live in the unknown with grace. You let the how be none of your concern. You embody the vibration, and you allow life to surprise you. Consider the story of Nyla, a healer who for years tried to grow her practice through strategies and marketing plans. Nothing flowed. One day, in exhaustion, she lit a candle, sat in silence and whispered, I let go. Guide me. From that day on, she stopped forcing. She worked from presence, followed her joy, and made space for rest. Within weeks, referrals began flowing. Her abundance arrived not through pushing, but through permission. This is the irrigation of trust. It softens the soil. It says to the universe, I've done my part. Now I open to yours. To embody this principle, try this evening ritual. Write your desire on a small piece of paper. Fold it, hold it to your heart and say, I bless this vision. I trust its timing. Then place it in a box, drawer, or altar space. Do not revisit it for 7 days. During that time, live in alignment, feel the vibration, but let go of the outcome. And gently ask yourself, where in my life am I still trying to force what longs to flow? There is a moment in every transformation where control must yield to presence. You have set your intention, aligned your emotion, visualized your future. And now, the field calls you to trust. To let your vibration speak louder than your words. To let your openness become the invitation. Letting go is not abandonment. It is spaciousness. And spaciousness is where miracles take root. If your energy is constantly checking, grasping, evaluating, you're still living from the frequency of lack. But when you surrender, you move from need to knowing. You affirm through your being that what you seek is already on its way. Not because you force it, but because you've become a match for it. Tom Campbell's model of reality teaches that consciousness evolves through intention and feedback, but also through low entropy or inner coherence. When you're not scattered in worry or obsession, your field becomes harmonious. This harmony, this surrender, actually sharpens the clarity of the signal you send to the quantum field. It is paradoxical. By caring deeply but holding loosely, you become more powerful. Imagine a river. Its current flows strongest where it is not obstructed. The same is true of abundance. When you allow space, emotional, mental, energetic, you allow life to organize itself on your behalf. Often, what appears as a delay is not a denial, but an alignment in progress. Let me offer you a symbolic story. In a remote village, there lived an old woman named Sora. Every morning she walked to the mountain and sang the same melody. Not for rain, not for healing, not for blessing. When asked why she sang, she replied, "I sing because I trust that the song is enough." Over time, villagers noticed that things grew stronger, people smiled more, and storms passed quickly. Sora had not begged for outcomes. She had created coherence through devotion. Her trust became the irrigation of the entire valley. This is the energy of surrender, sacred, stable, subtle. To embody this in daily life, begin each morning with this practice. After waking, place your feet on the floor and say aloud, "I surrender what is beyond my control. I walk in harmony with what I've already planted." As you move through the day, anytime tension arises, return to this phrase. Let it become your vibrational reset. And now, ask quietly, what would trusting my path fully feel like in my body? And am I willing to live from that feeling today? Surrender is the art of timing without tension. It is knowing that every vision planted in faith has its own season, and that rushing the process does not accelerate the bloom, it disturbs the soil. This is where trust becomes an emotional frequency, not just a concept. You feel it in your breath, your shoulders, your silence. Often, impatience is not just about desire, it's about fear. The fear that nothing will come, that you've done something wrong, that the universe has forgotten you. But the truth is gentler. Timing is a form of love. It orchestrates outcomes in ways your linear mind cannot see. You may think you're waiting, but in the unseen, the field is rearranging on your behalf. Greg Braden describes this as the divine matrix, a field where all things are connected, and where intention is communicated not through striving, but through resonance. The clearer and more relaxed your energy, the more precise your signal. And in that signal, the quantum responds with elegant synchronicity. Consider a man named Javier, who after years of striving to grow his business, paused and took a sabbatical. He began journaling, meditating, reconnecting with what brought him joy. He no longer chased clients. He aligned with clarity, and in that space, people began finding him. He became magnetic, not because he did more, but because he finally rested in trust. His field shifted, and prosperity arrived, not with a roar, but with a whisper. To embody trust is to stop arguing with the pace of your own becoming. Here's a symbolic practice. Place a small plant near your window. Each morning, greet it. Touch its soil. Notice that it doesn't bloom faster because you check it. It grows in rhythm. Let it become a teacher. As you tend to it, say aloud, "I am growing, even when I can't see it." And ask yourself gently, can I honor the timing of my life as wisely as I honor the growth of nature? There is a sacred elegance in letting go. Not because you no longer care, but because you have decided to trust deeper than your fear. To rest in the knowing that the field of life remembers what you've asked for and is already shaping it beyond what your eyes can yet perceive. Surrender is not a collapse, but a commitment. A quiet, steady devotion to alignment over control. When you surrender, you do not give up your vision, you give up the tension around it. You release the timeline. You drop the how. And in doing so, you return to the now, the only place where power truly resides. Science and spirit meet here in harmony. When the nervous system is calm, when your heart is coherent, and your breath is steady, your body becomes a magnet, not of desire, but of embodiment. This is not a spiritual bypass, it is vibrational maturity. Imagine again the gardener. They do not stand over the soil in frustration. They trust the seasons, prepare the space, and carry on with presence. Their joy is not delayed until the harvest. It lives in the tending, and this too can be your path. Let me share one final story before we transition. A traveler once sought wisdom from a monk in the mountains. "I've prayed. I've visualized. I've done the inner work. Why hasn't it come?" he asked. The monk poured tea into a cup until it overflowed. "This," he said, "is your field, full of effort, empty of space. Prosperity cannot enter a cup already spilling." Lay. The traveler bowed, finally understanding. Surrender creates room. To close this page, here is a gentle ritual. Tonight, place your journal beneath your pillow. Whisper into its pages one sentence you're ready to release. Then write one emotion you choose to embody instead, such as ease, trust, or certainty. As you sleep, let this intention be carried by your breath. Let the field work on your behalf while you rest. And reflect quietly. If I truly believed the universe was already arranging everything for me, how would I choose to live today? Now that we've learned to trust the rhythm of becoming, it is time to explore the fruits already forming within. The subtle yet powerful evidence that prosperity begins not as an external arrival, but as an internal embodiment. Let us now step into the moment of harvest, where we recognize that the first signs of abundance are felt, not found. Page 6, the harvest that begins within. Prosperity as a reflection of being. Prosperity in its most sacred form is not something you achieve. It is something you allow. It is not a number in your account, nor a title on your door. It is a state of coherence between who you truly are and how you allow yourself to live. It begins not with what the world offers you, but with what you are willing to recognize within. So often, we measure success by outcomes, what has manifested, what we can touch, what others can see, but the truest prosperity arrives first as a feeling, a subtle shift in posture, a calmness in decision, a generosity not based on excess, but on presence. The outer abundance is simply the echo of the inner alignment. Joe Dispenza reminds us that the goal is not to wait for life to prove our worthiness, but to become the frequency of worthiness itself. This means you don't wait for evidence to feel abundant. You feel abundant, and the evidence organizes around you, not because you forced it, but because your field no longer resists it. Let me offer you a simple image, the mirror. You stand before it with an expression of doubt, and the mirror reflects doubt. You smile, and the mirror smiles back. Yet most of us stare at the mirror of life, waiting for it to change first. unaware that it is only ever responding to the frequency we bring to it. Consider the story of Helena, a woman who, after years of financial scarcity and emotional fatigue, began each morning with a silent ritual. She would place one hand over her heart and say, "I live in abundance, because I live in myself." At first, it felt hollow. But she continued, not as performance, but as devotion. Over weeks, something changed, not in her paycheck, but in her voice, in her decisions, in the way she carried herself. Soon, opportunities flowed, not because she chased them, but because she had become ready to receive. She had already begun harvesting within. This is the harvest we speak of now. Not future outcomes, but present evidence. The peace that comes from knowing you no longer need to become someone else to feel complete. To connect with this truth, try this morning ritual. Before you move into the day, sit quietly. Ask yourself, what does abundance feel like to me? Then, without needing to name or define it, invite that feeling into your breath. Let it move through your body. Let it shape your tone, your walk, your gaze. As you carry it forward, you begin the day not in pursuit but in presence, and gently ask, what signs of abundance are already present in my life, waiting for my awareness to recognize them? To recognize prosperity within is to reclaim your sovereignty. It is to no longer wait for external validation to define your worth, your progress, or your readiness. It is to understand that the universe begins to rearrange itself the moment you do, not in frantic action, but in aligned presence. This inner prosperity doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly, in the way you say no to something that once drained you, in the way you breathe deeper in conversations that once made you anxious, in the ease with which you now give, not to prove anything but because you can. Dr. Bruce Lipton reminds us that our biology is shaped by perception, and perception, when elevated, becomes permission. When you begin to perceive yourself as whole, supported, abundant, your body begins to reflect that. Your energy becomes less reactive, more coherent. Your immune system strengthens. Your decisions carry clarity. You no longer live from fear of lack, but from the embodied knowing that you are connected to something greater, a field that reflects your essence. Let me share a quiet story of Ramiro, a retired teacher who spent decades saving every coin, believing he had to prepare for the worst. After learning about vibrational alignment, he shifted a simple habit. Instead of checking his bank balance with anxiety, he would first place a hand on his heart and say, "Thank you for what I already have." Over time, this small gesture rewired his nervous system. The numbers didn't always change immediately, but his relationship to them did. He stopped measuring his life by what was missing and started seeing the abundance in what was present. In friendships, health, sunsets, meals, his life began to feel full. And soon, in unexpected ways, so did his accounts. Inner prosperity creates outer readiness, not because it manipulates, but because it aligns. You become the one who receives with ease, not because you're luckier, but because you're available. Here's a grounding practice to deepen this awareness. Choose one moment from today, any moment, where you felt a glimpse of peace, joy, beauty, or support. It might be as small as sunlight on your skin, a kind word, or a moment of quiet. Write it down. Label it. This is abundance. Repeat this each evening for 1 week. Watch how your mind begins to shift. What we name, we amplify. And ask yourself gently, have I mistaken prosperity for something distant when it has always been whispering within me? Inner prosperity is not simply about feeling good. It's about becoming someone new, someone who walks through the world with the quiet certainty of enoughness, someone who no longer negotiates their value with circumstances, someone who radiates from within, not to impress, but to express the fullness they've uncovered. This is the shift from survival to sovereignty. And it's visible not in what you own, but in how you show up, in conversations, in decisions, in how you handle delay or disappointment. Abundance isn't what enters your life, it's what flows through it. Neville Goddard's teachings return here with particular poignance. He said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not pretend, assume, live as if." Not to manipulate life, but to match the frequency of your truth. When you live from abundance and instead of for it, everything changes. You no longer wait for signs, you are the sign. Think of the heart as a lighthouse. When it pulses with coherence through gratitude, love, and enoughness, it emits signals across the quantum ocean. These signals draw to you experiences that resonate, not because you demanded them, but because you've become their natural environment. Let me share a simple parable. A young monk asked his teacher, "How do I know when I am truly abundant?" The teacher replied, "When you no longer ask the question, because you are too busy giving thanks." In that moment, the monk understood. The fruit of the inner harvest is contentment, not complacency, but rooted presence. To live from this space, try the mirror practice of embodied wealth. Each morning, look into your own eyes in the mirror. Say aloud, "I am the source of my prosperity." Then, speak one quality you are harvesting today. Today I walk in generosity. Today I trust in flow. Today I radiate worth. Watch your tone. Let it come not from hope, but from knowing. This is not an affirmation. It is a declaration of identity. Over time, this ritual transforms how you think, feel, and respond, because you begin to see yourself as a reflection of abundance, not its seeker. And now, ask with reverence, if abundance was not a destination, but a way of being, what would change in how I live today? The true harvest of abundance is felt long before it is seen. It is the moment you realize that your value was never up for negotiation, that your worth is not a condition to meet, but a truth to remember, that life responds most powerfully when you are rooted in your own enoughness. This is not resignation, it is reclamation. When you live from inner prosperity, you move through the world with a gentle power. You no longer act from fear of lack, but from the fullness of presence. You give, not to prove. You receive, not to justify. You simply are. And that being is magnetic. Science echoes this wisdom. When the heart is in a state of coherence, it informs the brain and body to operate with clarity, creativity, and resilience. This physiological state of harmony becomes a new baseline, and the world responds not to your ambition, but to your vibration. Let me close this page with a symbolic story. A man spent years searching for a sacred treasure. He traveled through forests, deserts, and mountains. One day, exhausted, he returned home and noticed something shining beneath his bed. It was the object he had long sought. When asked why he hadn't seen it before, he replied, "Because I was too busy believing it had to be far away." Abundance often hides in plain sight, waiting for our stillness to recognize it. To seal this inner harvest, try the gesture of receiving each evening. Stand with your arms slightly open. Take a deep breath. Say aloud, "I receive all that is aligned with my highest path." Pause. Let the silence answer you. Repeat gently. Let this act remind your body that it is safe to welcome, not someday, but now. And reflect. What if the life I'm seeking is already growing quietly within me, waiting not for more effort, but for my permission to be enough? With the inner harvest ripening and the soul remembering its vibrational power, it becomes time to tend this abundance daily, not through force, but through sacred ritual. For it is in the rhythm of small, intentional acts that great transformations take root. Let us now step into the art of ritual, how to converse with the universe through daily devotion, frequency, and embodied gratitude. Page 7. Ritualizing abundance. Daily dialogues with the universe. Abundance is not maintained by chance. It is sustained by rhythm. Just as a garden thrives through consistent care, not sporadic attention, your vibrational alignment deepens when nurtured daily. And this care need not be grand. It need only be intentional. A ritual, in its essence, is a conversation with the invisible. It is your way of saying to the universe, I am here, I am listening, I am aligned. Unlike habits, which often operate unconsciously, rituals are infused with presence. They bring the sacred into the ordinary, the eternal into the now. You don't need incense, chants, or elaborate altars, though they are welcome if they speak to you. What matters is energy. A whispered gratitude over your morning tea, a moment of silence before you open your inbox, a conscious breath as you walk into your home. These are offerings. These are invitations for coherence. Greg Braden speaks often about prayer as feeling. That true prayer is not a request, but a state, an embodied emotion of gratitude, reverence, or compassion that aligns you with the field. This means that your rituals become more than actions. They become frequencies, daily recalibrations of your magnetic field. Let me offer you a story from Eliane, a ceramic artist. Each morning, before touching her clay, she lit a small candle and said, "May what flows through me bring beauty and ease." That one sentence became a tuning fork. Her work flourished, not because she pushed harder, but because her field became a vessel. Clients said they could feel something in her pieces. They weren't wrong. Her ritual infused them with energy. You too can shape your reality this way. To begin, choose a moment of your day that feels rushed or forgotten. Brushing your teeth, making coffee, opening a window. Infuse it with awareness. As you do it, say a simple phrase like, "I open to receive," or "This is sacred." Repeat it daily. Let that repetition root into your body, like a song your cells begin to hum. And ask yourself, not with pressure but curiosity, what small act could I infuse with sacredness so that abundance becomes not an event but a rhythm? Rituals are not about repetition, they are about remembrance. Each time you pause to light a candle, to speak an intention, to breathe with awareness, you are remembering that you are not alone in the field of creation. You are a participant in a living conversation, and your frequency is the language. Many people believe they must wait for stillness to find time for ritual, but what if ritual could create stillness, no matter how busy your life? What if, instead of trying to escape into the sacred, you invited the sacred to meet you in the mundane? A ritual can be as subtle as placing your hand on your heart before a difficult conversation, as simple as blessing your food with gratitude, as quiet as standing barefoot for 60 seconds on the earth and whispering, "I belong." These acts, repeated, become threads of coherence. They weave your life into a field of alignment where abundance flows not in bursts but in harmony. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that the body becomes the mind, which means that whatever you repeat with emotion, even small acts, gets recorded into your nervous system as a pattern. Over time, a 5-minute ritual done in reverence can recondition your emotional baseline. You no longer need to get ready for abundance. You live as one who is always preparing space for it. Let me offer the story of Rosa, a mother of 3 who used to feel overwhelmed and disconnected from her own needs. One day, she created a tiny altar in her kitchen, just a flower, a stone, and a note that said, "Everything begins with breath." Each time she passed it, she touched the stone and took one conscious inhale. That ritual, no more than 10 seconds, became her anchor. It reminded her that she could connect to her center without leaving her life. Over time, she reported feeling more grounded, more open to joy, and even noticed unexpected financial blessings. Her field had shifted, not by escape, but by integration. Here is a practice to explore. Create a morning portal. Choose one object, a book, a plant, a cup, and designate it as your daily signal to pause. Each morning, before you begin anything, touch it. Close your eyes. Whisper one sentence of gratitude or openness. Let that be the first vibration you offer the world. Over time, this moment becomes your tuning. And now, ask yourself with care, if abundance spoke in quiet gestures, what might it already be saying to me through my daily life? The power of ritual lies not in its form, but in its frequency. Each time you engage with the same sacred gesture, you reinforce a neural and energetic pathway, a kind of internal compass that steadily orients you back to alignment. With repetition, the ritual becomes a portal, a place where the ego quiets, the field expands, and your being remembers its creative role. These rituals are not meant to control outcomes, but to cultivate resonance. They prepare your energy for the abundance that is already seeking you. Think of them as setting the table, not because you know what dish will arrive, but because you trust that something nourishing is on its way. Neville Goddard often emphasized the power of assumption, to live from the reality you wish to create. Rituals are physical expressions of that assumption. They are not superstition. They are spiritual rehearsal. Each time you light a candle and say, "I am supported," you rehearse the feeling of support. Each time you breathe before speaking, you rehearse clarity. And the more you rehearse, the more it becomes your natural state. Imagine the universe as a wise listener. It doesn't respond to panic, but to pattern. When your rituals say, "I believe," your reality begins to echo, "I agree." Let me offer a metaphor. Your life is a temple, and every action is incense. When done with awareness, even making the bed or washing your hands can be sacred. You do not need a monastery to live spiritually. You need presence, and presence, sustained, becomes prayer. There's a story of a man named Thomas who, after losing his job, felt lost and disempowered. One evening, he began lighting a single candle at dusk. With each flame, he would speak the phrase, "Something new is beginning." He did this every evening for 30 days. On the 31st, he received a call from an old friend, offering him an opportunity he hadn't imagined. Thomas wasn't surprised. He had already been preparing for it, not with resumes, but with resonance. To deepen your practice, create an evening closing ritual. Before bed, sit in silence for 1 minute. Place your hand over your solar plexus, your center of will. Say aloud, "I release what is done. I honor what is growing. I rest in trust." Do this for 7 nights. Notice how your dreams, decisions, and mornings begin to shift. And now, ask with tenderness, what sacred rhythm is longing to enter my days, if only I would make space to invite it? A life anchored in ritual is a life rooted in meaning. When you infuse your day with sacred pauses, you no longer move through time unconsciously, you walk with presence. Each gesture becomes a thread that weaves your being into coherence with the universe, and through that coherence, prosperity flows. Not as a distant goal, but as a rhythm you embody. What began as a quiet act, a breath, a word, a touch, becomes over time a field of resonance so familiar, so nurturing, that you forget what it was like to live without it. You don't do rituals anymore. You become one. Your presence itself is an offering. Your voice, a frequency. Your choices, a prayer. Greg Braden teaches that the heart emits the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, and when it is attuned to gratitude and intention, it influences everything around it. Your rituals, therefore, are not just for you. They become transmissions. Without speaking, you begin to alter the energetic climate of your space, your relationships, your opportunities. This is abundance in motion, not accumulating, but emanating. Let me share a closing story. A woman named Annika, after years of financial struggle and emotional depletion, began one simple ritual. She spoke with her plants. Every morning she greeted them by name, thanked them for growing, and told them she was learning to grow too. Over time, those moments became the most nourishing part of her day. She found herself speaking with more love to her children, her work, her own body. Then almost imperceptibly her financial life shifted. She didn't earn more by pushing, she received more by resonating. To anchor this final teaching, begin the ritual of receptivity. Each day, at a moment of your choosing, pause and say aloud, I welcome what aligns with my soul. I release what no longer serves. Say it as you pour tea, open a window, touch a leaf. Let life become your altar, and ask with reverence, what would it feel like to treat my entire life as a sacred ceremony and let abundance be one of its many blessings? You have planted, cultivated, surrendered, and honored the field of your becoming. Now, in this final chapter, we gather the essence of all que fue vivido, not to end, but to integrate. Let us now step into the final embodiment, not just to live in a garden of prosperity, but to realize that you are the garden. You are the source. You are the bloom. Page 8, Becoming the Garden, Prosperity as an Extension of Consciousness. At the heart of every practice, every breath, every intention you have planted, there lives a deeper truth. You are not separate from the abundance you seek. You are its source, its vessel, its garden. And when you stop chasing prosperity as something outside of you and begin recognizing it as a frequency you generate, you return to wholeness. This is the final threshold of the journey. Not an ending, but a remembering. You are the field, you are the soil, you are the sun, and the fruits of abundance, financial, emotional, spiritual, are the natural extension of who you've become. Tom Campbell's model of consciousness suggests that the universe is not something we live in, but something that flows through us. If all reality is consciousness interacting with itself, then your inner state is not only influencing the external, it is the external seen through the lens of your vibration. To transform your world is not to reach further. It is to deepen within. Let me offer you a closing metaphor. Imagine a vast and vibrant garden. Every tree, every bloom, every fragrance was once invisible, carried in the heart of a single seed. Now, walk into that garden. Feel the warmth of its soil, the music of its wind, and then notice it is not around you, it is you. Every flower is a decision you made. Every leaf is a belief you released. Every ray of sun is the emotion you dared to feel before the world gave you a reason. You did not build this garden. You became it. There is nothing more to seek, only more of yourself to allow. This is the frequency of true wealth, not accumulation, but emanation. Not control, but coherence. You no longer try to manifest, you live as the manifestation, and the universe responds because it always has. Not to your words, but to your state. To integrate this truth, begin each new week with this identity invocation. Stand tall. Breathe deeply. Place your hands over your heart and solar plexus. Speak aloud. I am not waiting for abundance. I am its expression. I am not seeking the way. I am the way becoming. Let your voice be calm. Let your body listen. Let your soul reply in silence. And now ask, not with longing but with reverence, if I am already the garden, what kind of world will bloom through me today? Becoming the garden means you no longer live in reaction. You live in resonance. You are no longer a leaf blown by winds of circumstance, but the rooted presence through which life expresses itself. In this state, abundance is not something you wait for. It is something you emit. You become the source of nourishment for yourself, for others, for the field around you. This embodiment is not a state of constant joy or perfection. It is a steady return to coherence, a quiet trust that no matter the season, drought or rain, your roots remember how to draw from the deep well of inner wisdom. You begin to understand that even your struggles were compost, breaking down old versions of you to feed something more enduring. Bruce Lipton's work reminds us that our biology is fluid, that through perception and belief, we can literally influence how our genes express themselves. The garden is not just symbolic, it is physiological. When you believe you are safe, you produce hormones of growth. When you embody gratitude, your heart rhythm stabilizes, your immune system strengthens, your energy flows freely. You do not attract abundance from the outside. You become the environmental condition in which it naturally grows. And this internal ecology begins to ripple outward. Your relationships shift, your creativity flourishes. Money flows not as a reward, but as a reflection. Not because you tried harder, but because you vibrated differently. Let me share a story from the Andes. An elder healer once told his apprentice, "Stop trying to pull the sun into the earth. Instead, open the flower." The apprentice asked, "How?" The elder placed his hand on his chest and said, "Here, open this." Prosperity was never about the outer light. It was always about the inner bloom. To live from this space, try this walking ritual of integration. Each day, walk slowly for 5 minutes, inside or outside. As you walk, repeat inwardly, "I am the garden. I am the light. I am the rain." With each step, feel that you are cultivating reality with your presence. Let your movement be your message to the field, and ask with gentle awareness, what parts of me are already blooming, quietly, courageously, in ways I haven't yet honored? There is a moment in every journey where the seeker stops seeking, not because they've given up, but because they've arrived. Not at a destination, but at a realization. They were always it. The path, the gate, the field. To become the garden is to step into this moment, to remember that you are already standing in the answer, and that life has been speaking to you through your own vibration all along. You begin to see that abundance was never outside of you. It was in your choices, in your stillness, in how you kept walking even when you couldn't yet see the bloom. You were aligning, you were cultivating, and now you are flowering. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Joe Dispenza says, to change is to become greater than your environment, greater than your body, greater than time. In this final embodiment, you no longer wait for the world to reflect your worth. You radiate it. You don't hope for wealth. You walk as if it is part of your nature. You are not separate from what you desire. You are the living channel through which it flows. This doesn't mean that challenges disappear. It means that your center is no longer shaken by them. You respond from alignment, not from reaction. You create from presence, not from panic. You bless, even as you build. This is the maturity of spiritual prosperity, not magical thinking, but magnetic being. Let me offer a final image. Imagine standing barefoot in the middle of your life. Around you, nothing has visibly changed, yet everything feels different. You are breathing deeper, smiling more, deciding with clarity, acting without rush. And from that stillness, doors begin to open. Conversations unfold, opportunities arrive, not because you chase them, because they were always part of your garden, waiting for you to stop running and come home. To embody this realization, try this closing integration practice. Sit quietly with your eyes closed. Place both hands over your chest. Whisper, "I am no longer becoming. I have become." Breathe. Feel those words settle. Then ask, what would change if I lived as if this were already true? Let the answer rise, not from the mind, but from your inner field. And now ask with quiet power, what would my days look like if I truly believed that everything I've been searching for is already growing in me? And now here you are, not at the end, but at the return, to yourself, to the field, to the quiet knowing that prosperity was never something you needed to earn. It was always a frequency you were invited to remember, to cultivate, to become. You have walked through the soil of your beliefs, tended the roots of your emotions, imagined with sacred intention, surrendered with trust, recognized the harvest within, and ritualized your alignment with the universe. And now you stand in the garden you have become, vibrant, whole, sovereign. There is nothing left to prove, no vibration left to chase. You are already transmitting the wealth of who you are. The outer world will respond in its own time, with its own poetry. Your role is not to force the bloom, but to continue nourishing your field with presence, gratitude, and coherence. The more you align with your essence, the more life aligns with you. This is the path of vibrational prosperity, not a secret, but a science of the soul, not a miracle, but a remembering. Neville Goddard, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Tom Campbell, each in their own way, have whispered the same truth. Reality is not something that happens to you. It is something that blooms through you. And when your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs align with your inner worth, you do not attract abundance. You reflect it. You become it. You radiate it. So as this journey draws to a close, return once more to the quiet within, the sacred stillness where the garden speaks, where the soil remembers, where the vibration of your being echoes through the universe like a song finally sung in its true key. Take one final breath. Feel your body as part of the earth. Feel your heart as part of the cosmos. Feel your presence as the bridge between both. And now ask, not for an answer, but for depth. If I treated every moment from now on as sacred soil, what kind of world would I begin to grow? May your life bloom with the truth of who you are. May your field be fertile with trust, and may your garden never stop growing.